Did Vikings really reach North America before Columbus? And how did they end up traveling deep into Russia? Watch till the end, history is about to get shocking. Who were the Vikings? Before we dive into raids and conquests, let's understand who the Vikings actually were. Viking wasn't an ethnicity or nationality, it was an activity. The term probably comes from Old Norse vikingur, meaning pirate or raider. The people we call Vikings were Scandinavians from what is now Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, though they didn't think of themselves as unified nations. They lived in independent chiefdoms and kingdoms, speaking related languages. Old Norse, worshipping similar gods, the Norse pantheon of Odin, Thor, Freya, etc., and sharing cultural practices. Most Scandinavians never went Viking, raiding. They were farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, and traders living in small settlements across Scandinavia's harsh landscape. Only a minority became raiders, though raiding was prestigious and profitable for young men seeking wealth and reputation. The popular image of bloodthirsty barbarians is misleading. Vikings had sophisticated laws recorded in their law codes, complex political systems, rich literary traditions, the sagas, though written down later, impressive artistic achievements, jewelry, wood carving, poetry, and advanced shipbuilding technology that enabled their expansion. As we examine the Viking Age, remember, these were complex people, not cartoon villains. Their violence was real, but so were their achievements. Why did the Viking Age start? Now, let's address a fundamental question. Why did Scandinavians suddenly start raiding Europe in the late 8th century? Several factors contributed. First, technological advancement. Viking ships, especially the longship, were masterpieces of design. Shallow draft allowed navigation of rivers and coastal waters. Symmetrical design meant they could reverse direction without turning around. Light construction enabled portage over land between waterways, and sail technology, recently adopted from Western Europe, combined with oars, gave unprecedented range and speed. These ships made raiding possible. Second, political changes in Scandinavia as kingdoms centralized power. Some nobles and their followers left, rather than submit, seeking opportunities elsewhere. Third, population pressure. Scandinavia's limited farmland may have created pressure for young men to seek fortune abroad. Fourth, economic opportunity. Monasteries and coastal towns were wealthy and poorly defended, offering lucrative targets. Fifth, the success of early raids encouraged imitators after Lindisfarne. Word spread that Christian lands were rich and vulnerable. And sixth, climate change. The medieval warm period, roughly 950 to 1250 CE, made northern seas more navigable and Scandinavian agriculture more productive, supporting population growth and distant voyages. The Viking Age wasn't random violence, it was opportunistic expansion enabled by technological and environmental factors. Comment below with your thoughts. What surprises you most about the real Vikings? Did you know they reached America centuries before Columbus? Let's talk about the Vikings' most ambitious conquest, England. Early Viking raids, late 8th and early 9th centuries, were hit-and-run attacks, raid a monastery, grab treasure, leave before armed response arrived. But in 865 CE, a massive Viking force, called the Great Heathen Army, landed in England with a different goal: conquest and settlement. Led by legendary figures including Ivar the Boneless and his brothers, sons of the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, if he existed. This army numbered thousands, unprecedented for Viking forces. Over the next 14 years, they conquered most of England. East Anglia fell quickly. Its king, allegedly killed in the Blood Eagle ritual, though this might be later exaggeration. Northumbria was conquered, and the Vikings captured York, making it their capital, Jorvik in Norse. Mercia was defeated and divided. Only the southern kingdom of Wessex, under King Alfred the Great, survived through desperate resistance. Alfred's victory at the Battle of Edington, 878 CE, stopped the Viking advance and established a division. The Danelaw, eastern and northern England, under Viking control, and English Wessex in the south. We'll take a closer look at how Viking settlement transformed English society, law, language, and genetics changes still visible today. Shifting gears, let's explore the Viking achievement that wasn't rediscovered until the 1960 seconds. They reached North America around 1000 CE, 500 years before Columbus. The story begins with Eric the Red, a violent troublemaker exiled from Iceland in 982 CE. He sailed west and discovered Greenland, which he deliberately gave an appealing name to attract settlers, even though it was mostly ice and rock. Norse settlers established 2 colonies in Greenland that lasted nearly 500 years. Around 1000 CE, Erik's son, Leif Erikson, hearing rumors of land further west from sailors blown off course, organized an expedition. He reached 3 locations he named Helluland, probably Baffin Island, Markland, probably Labrador, and Vinland, probably Newfoundland, the first confirmed European contact with North America. Vikings attempted to establish permanent settlements, but were driven out by conflicts with indigenous peoples, whom they called Skraelings. For centuries, this was considered legend from Norse sagas. Then in 1960, Norwegian archaeologists Helge and Anne Stein Ingstad discovered Lanza au Meadows in Newfoundland, a confirmed Viking settlement dated to around 1000 CE. Excavations revealed 8 buildings, iron nails, a bronze pin, and evidence of boat repair, proving the sagas told truth. The Viking discovery of America is now indisputable fact. As we uncover Viking achievements that changed history, make sure to hit that like button if you're amazed by what archaeology reveals. And don't forget to subscribe for more discoveries that rewrite what we thought we knew. We've explored Western expansion, but let's talk about Vikings who went east. Swedish Vikings, called Rus or Varangians, traveled down Russian rivers, the Volga and Dnieper, to reach the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic Caliphate, seeking trade opportunities. They established trading posts along these rivers, collecting tribute from Slavic peoples and becoming rulers of early Russian principalities. The city of Kiev became a major Rus center, and the Kievan Rus state would become the ancestor of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. The very name Russia derives from Rus, the Viking traders and warriors who founded the first organized states in the region. Byzantine sources describe Rus Vikings serving as elite mercenaries, the Varangian Guard, protecting Byzantine emperors, including possibly Harold Hardrada, who would later invade England in 1066. Archaeological evidence confirms Viking presence across Russia. Thousands of Scandinavian-style artifacts, graves, and runic inscriptions. Genetic studies show Scandinavian DNA entered Russian populations during this period. This eastern expansion was economically motivated. Vikings were middlemen connecting northern furs, amber, and slaves with Byzantine and Islamic gold, silver, and luxury goods. The wealth generated transformed Scandinavian society and funded Western raids and conquests. Here's what made Vikings such effective warriors. Their tactics emphasized speed and surprise. Longships allowed rapid strikes against unprepared targets, and warriors could beach their ships, raid, and escape before organized resistance arrived. Vikings used psychological warfare. Their reputation for ferocity often caused enemies to surrender without fighting, and displays of extreme violence, real or exaggerated in later accounts, created terror. Their weapons were sophisticated. Swords were prestige weapons, often pattern-welded with multiple layers of iron and steel, given names, and passed through families. Axes were common, and deadly bearded axes could hook shields and weapons, and Danes used massive two-handed axes. Spears were versatile for throwing or close combat. Bows were used, but less emphasized than in other cultures. Armor included mail shirts, expensive, only for wealthy warriors, leather jerkins, and wooden shields with iron bosses. The berserkers warriors who allegedly entered trance-like battle fury may have used drugs, mushrooms, or simply worked themselves into psychological states, though later sources exaggerated their supernatural abilities. Viking warriors trained from youth, and successful raiders were experienced fighters who understood tactics, not mindless barbarians. Their combination of mobility, surprise, and combat skill made them dominant for centuries. Let's address the fact that Vikings were far more than warriors. Scandinavian society was agricultural at its base. Most people farmed barley, oats, and raised livestock, cattle, sheep, pigs, in challenging northern climates. They were skilled fishermen, hunting whales, seals, and fish that provided food and resources. Vikings were exceptional craftspeople. Their shipbuilding was the world's finest for centuries. They produced beautiful jewelry using gold, silver, and bronze with intricate designs. They carved elaborate wood decorations for ships and buildings. They wove textiles, including the famous wadmal wool fabric that was a trade commodity. And they worked iron into tools, weapons, and everyday items. Viking society had clear social hierarchies. Jarl's nobles owned land and led warriors. Carls, freemen, were farmers, craftsmen, and traders who had rights and could own property. And thralls, slaves, had no rights and could be bought, sold, or killed by owners. Women had more rights than in many medieval societies. They could own property, divorce abusive husbands, and run households and businesses, while men raided. Viking trade networks were extensive, connecting Scandinavia with Byzantium, the Islamic world, and Northern Europe, exchanging furs, amber, walrus, ivory, and slaves for silver, silk, spices, and weapons. Here's a transformation that ended the Viking Age: Scandinavia's conversion to Christianity. The process took centuries and was driven by multiple factors. Political leaders recognized advantages in converting. Christian kings gained legitimacy in European politics. Christianity provided literate clergy who could administer kingdoms, and conversion could end destructive raids that were becoming less profitable. The process was gradual and often violent. Kings like Harald Bluetooth of Denmark and Olaf Tryggvason of Norway forced conversion on their subjects, destroying pagan temples and executing resistors. Iceland converted peacefully in 1000 CE through a democratic vote at their assembly, Althing, though individuals could privately continue pagan practices. By the 11th century, Scandinavia was nominally Christian, though pagan beliefs persisted for generations. Christianity transformed Viking society. The old gods, Odin, Thor, Freya, were officially abandoned. Runic inscriptions began invoking Christ. Stone churches replaced wooden temples. Christian morality discouraged raiding fellow Christians. And Scandinavian kingdoms integrated into Christian European politics. The conversion essentially ended the Viking Age. Once Scandinavians became Christian kings, following European norms, they stopped raiding and became part of the medieval European system. The transformation from feared raiders to Christian kingdoms took about 300 years. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the true history of the Viking Age. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss Part 2 of Genetic Legacy, Viking DNA Today. More incredible discoveries are on the way. Stay tuned.